Hello everyone, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. Nathan Masters here today with a MOC review. This MOC was found on Rebrickable. It was created by Chris at StrangeBirds. Chris has made a Defender. Well, it's styled after a Defender, but I don't think it's supposed to be a piece-for-piece remake of any actual vehicle. I think it's just inspired by the Land Rover Defender. So in that vein, it's kind of a nicer generic vehicle to have driving around your city if you're looking for something in the 6 wide scale. Remember, the Speed Champions started out as 6 wide, so a lot of the early Speed Champions collectors, this would fit right in with those original sets. Speed Champions is now moved to 8 wide, and that offers a path to greater detail and greater accuracy. But personally, I think the 6 wide scale still fits a little bit better with our minifigs. It's actually still a little large in my opinion, but once you go down to 4 wide, you really start to lose some of the versatility that you can create more realistic looking cars. So in my opinion, 6 wide is kind of a good compromise in between the true to minifig scale, which would be smaller, and the detail that you can get with an 8 wide, which makes minifigures look really small. The MOC itself is about 200 parts. The original submission on Rebrickable, it's suggested to build with a light bluish gray body and a white roof. I didn't have all of the parts to do the lower half in light bluish gray, so I did a color swap to red, and for the most part I think it holds up in red quite well. I did make a few alterations here and there, some pretty minor ones. We'll start with the back windshield. On Chris's version, the suggested part to use is the 1x4 with 2 windows. Using this part kind of separates the back window into 2 pretty obvious sections, and I would rather have it unbroken all the way across, so I used a 1x4 old style window. This window is out of production, so if you don't have some on hand, it might be a little more expensive to get. Or if you have a collection that's mostly based on newer LEGO sets, you probably would not have this window to use. But I did, and I wanted to swap it out, so I changed that. I also changed the mirrors slightly. Chris's version has a slightly different version of the mirror, where you have the 1x1 with the clip and a 1x1 tile. Instead of that, I used the clip that goes the other direction and a cheese slope, and it just gives a little bit of a profile to those mirrors. The last thing that I changed piece-wise was on the taillights. The original model had a plain 1x1 with the stud on one side and a round tile taillight. The one that I built has a headlight brick where that has a half plate recess, and it's back into the body a little bit, and I used a square tile for the taillight on this Defender. Other than that, everything has pretty much been kept the same from the instructions, which are actually presented as a video. So the instruction video, according to Chris, was done using LDD and Blender. I'm not exactly sure how you combine those 2 pieces of software, but the result was a very intuitive instruction video to follow. There's complete visibility on every step on where you need to put parts, and it was a very intuitive progression through the model, working bottom to top. There were never any parts just floating out in midair. So well done on the instruction presentation there in video form. Yeah, it's a really nice 6 wide vehicle. The roof is pretty removable. You do have all 6 studs on the windshield and these 4 studs on the back that do attach to the roof. There's 2 additional studs there on the body. Interior, we have a single driver seat, the steering wheel, some gauges, and then 2x2 boxes in the back. This should fit a minifigure. I haven't actually tested that myself, so we will do that right now. And what's helping here is the recess on the inside of the roof. You actually get a little extra height, but we probably wouldn't even need it in this case. That minifig fits no problem in the driver's seat. Now if we wanted to have someone sit side by side in here, we would need to do a little modification, otherwise the arms would start to interfere. The arms on the minifigure do stick out wider than 2 studs. However, there is plenty of room in here if you wanted to add a back seat or maybe offset a front seat so that you could get two minifigs side by side in the cab of the Defender. Color-wise, there's not actually too many colors you can build this in. There's a few specialty parts that it does depend on. You need to have the 1x3 inverted slope that goes both ways. So that's probably going to limit your color palette a little bit. It does exist in red, light bluish gray. It does exist in dark red. These doors are going to be another one, but I think the doors you could probably change out and either do a stack of the older version that's only 1 brick high, or you could just have a solid wall panel. Just remember, you will need to accommodate the minifig arm if you want to still have it be minifig compatible. Other things, if I were to kind of do a deep dive on this model, and I might end up doing this eventually, personally, I think the luggage rack on the top is a little bit oversized just for the scale of the model. I'd like to see that slimmed down if possible. I do like the light bar on the top. I think that would want to stay, but having things that are over a brick high by the time you get this fence on the plate, it just seems a little bit tall. I think it would help if this was actually loaded up with luggage or something and you were hauling stuff around. That would probably help to make it look a little more in scale if it was loaded up. But just driving it around without anything in the luggage rack, to me it looks a little large. I'd really like to be able to use some of the newer Speed Champion tires that we have. These work pretty good. I think the scaling's about right. And this is actually the slightly larger version of the regular tire that's been used for a long time. But the Speed Champions has introduced several new styles of tire and wheel that use the Technic pin connection. So I have a couple of those, and I might try to reverse engineer something for this to work. I'll have to remember how to do that on the back as well, because there is a spare wheel on the rear. And other than that, there's not a whole lot I would change about this MOC. If I want to get really into the rebuilding process, the only other thing that's crossed my mind would be to actually extend the whole thing by 1 stud, and then I could just completely get rid of the roof rack and use the 4x6 panel that actually matches up with the profile and have a much smoother, slimmed down roof on this Defender. But that would involve kind of an extensive rebuild of the entire back half of the model. I think it can be done. It wouldn't be too difficult, but it starts to deviate a lot from the original MOC submitted on Rebrickable. Once again, thank you to Chris at StrangeBirds for submitting this MOC and making it free. Something that wasn't too hard to put together at all. I just had to round up some pieces, and I'll be putting some pictures on that Rebrickable MOC page as well. Thanks for watching today, guys. We'll see you next time on Brick System Brothers.